Yo, what's going on everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day. Welcome to today's Pokemon GO video. And today we're going to be talking about the one and only Shadow Mewtwo. It is going to be in raid battles this weekend, and you do not want to miss out on it because it is, right now, the absolute best Pokemon in the game. It's even better than a couple of Mega Evolutions, and it's definitely going to elevate your gameplay. I really do think that if you are able to raid for Shadow Mewtwo this weekend, you should definitely do so. And the point of this video is going to be giving you all the counters for Shadow Mewtwo, as well as a couple of tips that should definitely allow you to get this Pokemon. Now, I don't know if this is an oversight or if it's because Niantic are a bunch of heathens, but this weekend is also Easter weekend. So for people who live in the United States, as well as some parts of the world, they're probably going to be spending time with their families, they're probably going to church, and yeah, they're not necessarily going to be able to actually raid for Shadow Mewtwo. And if that happens to be you, I highly suggest you spend time with your family over doing raids because you don't want to end up with an unhealthy relationship with Pokemon GO. That's not going to get you anywhere in life. Definitely spend time with your family. I do not suggest giving up time with your family just for the sake of playing Pokemon GO. That's not necessarily ever going to be healthy. But if you do happen to have some time, I do suggest you go out and do at least a couple of these raids because Shadow Mewtwo, like I said before, is currently the #1 Pokemon in the game. And I would say that even if you do not get yourself a high IV, it's definitely still going to be worth having in your collection because even a 0% IV Shadow Mewtwo is going to be better than a 100% IV regular Mewtwo. So real quick, let's go over the counters for Shadow Mewtwo, because yes, this is a very difficult raid and you will want to bring the best of the best. Alright, so Shadow Mewtwo is a pure Psychic type Pokemon, which means it's only going to be weak against Ghost type, Dark type, and Bug type attacks, and it's going to have resistances to Fighting type and Psychic type attacks. The perfect IVs for Shadow Mewtwo is going to be 2387, and then it's going to be 2984 if it is weather boosted by windy weather. Now, the amount of trainers that you need is going to vary, but I would suggest going with about 8 trainers that are at least level 35 with Pokemon that are at least level 35. I think the bare minimum that you can bring is 5 trainers that are at least level 40. Now, when it comes to the counters for Shadow Mewtwo, they're pretty straightforward. You will want to bring your absolute best Ghost types and Dark types. These include Mega Gengar, Mega Banette, Mega Tyranitar, Shadow Mewtwo, Hydreigon, as well as Giratina Origin Form. Now, something to keep in mind is that when it comes to Mega Gengar, yes, it is going to be the absolute best DPS against Shadow Mewtwo, but it is also weak against Psychic type attacks. So there is a bit of a draw there. If you bring a Mega Gengar, you will want to be careful because Shadow Mewtwo may knock it out extremely quickly. So make sure you have the other Mega Evolutions readily available because more often than not, they are actually going to be a lot more useful considering they'll be lasting in battle much longer. Shadow Mewtwo is actually pretty easy as long as you're bringing the right counters. It does have quite a lot of health, so it's really just going to be a major DPS race, so make sure you're bringing your absolute best of the best. If you do not have any of the Pokemon that I mentioned, you could also get away with bringing Pokemon like Chandelure. That is a Pokemon that is often considered a budget Pokemon, and it does deal quite a lot of Ghost type DPS, so make sure you're bringing that if you lack any other good Dark or Ghost type Pokemon. Now, one major tip that I have before this weekend is that you stock up on Purifying Gems. These are gems that you get from completing Team Go Rocket battles, and in case you don't know, these are items that actually subdue a Shadow Pokemon in a Shadow Raid when it starts to go berserk, and when it comes to Shadow Mewtwo, it is a very hard-hitting Shadow Pokemon. So yeah, do not be caught without any Purifying Gems, even if you're raiding with a whole bunch of people. I highly suggest you stock up on as many of them as you can, preferably having the maximum amount, so that when you raid for Shadow Mewtwo during the weekend, you will be best prepared. Also, you have a couple of days before Shadow Mewtwo hits raid, so I would actually reach out to your local communities to see if there are any raid groups that are going to be raiding for Shadow Mewtwo. You will definitely want to have a dedicated group because the more of these that you do over the weekend, the higher chances of you getting yourself a really high IV or even possibly a shiny form, because shiny Shadow Mewtwo is probably one of the most coveted Pokemon you could get. And one more final thing that I'm going to leave you with before I end this video. Do not purify your Shadow Mewtwo's. If you end up getting a good one, then make sure you hold on to it and power it up. But if you end up with a crappy one, then still keep it because it's going to be really good. Do not ever purify Shadow Mewtwo, even if you're going to end up with 100% IVs. The reason for this is simply because Shadow Mewtwo with the Shadow Damage bonus is going to be so much better than any 100% purified Mewtwo. And that is something that a lot of players tend to not realize. So yeah, even if you're going to get yourself a hundo or even a shundo, I still suggest you hold on to your Shadow Mewtwo's and keep it Shadow, because you're going to end up with a much better Pokemon and it's definitely going to allow you to get ahead. Shadow Mewtwo is a great generalist. It's a Pokemon that has a lot of universal uses and you do not want to be caught without one. It's definitely a very powerful Pokemon, and if you're lucky, you might end up with a high IV one, and that one is definitely worth investing into. Even if you do not end up with a high IV Mewtwo, you should still invest into it because it is such a powerful Pokemon and it's definitely going to get you ahead. But in case, that's going to be it for this video. Now, I would love to know your thoughts regarding Shadow Mewtwo down below. How are you preparing for Shadow Mewtwo raids? Definitely share those tips down below and let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. If you ended up enjoying it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to every single patron on my Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support the Jinsula channel, the best way you could do so is by clicking on the links in the description below. One of them will take you to my Patreon page, and if you become a paid Patreon member, you get a permanent spot on my in-game Pokemon GO friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids or the friendship system, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. Also, if you want to support my channel in a different way that doesn't involve spending money, you could always do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula, and I'm on the platforms that you see on screen. And yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.